It's a question that just pulls you right in, doesn't it? It's asked as if you were there, as if you saw the whole thing unfold with your own eyes. It opens one of the most incredible stories ever told. And that question, well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. This is the story of the elephant, an event where a massive, meticulously planned military invasion ran headfirst into a power that justified all human logic. It is the ultimate story of human schemes versus divine plans. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the invasion, there's a key idea we need to understand to really grasp the significance of all this. This event isn't just some random miracle. Scholars have a specific term for it, an urhus. Think of it like a foundation stone or a divine prologue. It's a miracle that happens before a prophet officially begins their mission, kind of like setting the stage. And that's crucial because the story of the elephant took place in the exact same year the Prophet Muhammad was born. So, where does this all kick off? Well, not in Mecca, but way down south in Yemen with a powerful and very ambitious ruler. His name was Abraha, and he had a grand and, as you'll see, an incredibly arrogant plan. Okay, so picture this. Abraha builds this absolutely magnificent cathedral, just dripping with gold and silver. His goal? It was completely strategic. He wanted to reroute the spiritual and, let's be honest, the economic traffic of the entire Arabian Peninsula away from the Kaaba in Mecca and straight to his new cathedral in Yemen. But there was one huge problem. The Arabs' ancient, deep-seated love for the Kaaba. Well, things get personal. An Arab, completely offended by this challenge to the Kaaba, goes and defiles Abraha's new church. For Abraha, that was it. That was the last straw. His ambition suddenly boiled over into pure rage. He swore a solemn oath that he would march his army to Mecca and tear the Kaaba down, stone by stone. And man, did he march. He put together this massive army, and its crown jewel was a giant war elephant named Mamut, something the Arabs had really never seen before. It was like a walking tank. On their way north, they just steamrolled anyone who tried to stop them. So by the time they got to the edge of Mecca, his army looked absolutely invincible. Okay, so the army is parked right outside the city, but this is where the story pivots. It stops being about soldiers and swords and becomes this incredible showdown of wills, a clash between two leaders with two totally different ways of seeing the world. So the first thing Abraha's guys do is they raid the pastures around the city, grabbing all the grazing animals. And in that haul, 200 camels. And these weren't just any camels. They belonged to the leader of the Quraysh tribe, a man named Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib, who by all accounts was this incredibly charismatic and dignified leader, went to meet the invading king. Abraha was apparently so impressed by his presence that he came down from his throne to sit with him. And he'd think he's there to beg for his city, right? To plead for the Kaaba? Nope. He asks for his camels back. You can just imagine Abraha's face. He's confused. He's insulted. He's thinking, wait a minute, I'm here to flatten your entire way of life, your religion, your most sacred site, and you're worried about your livestock? For a man like Abraha, who thinks only in terms of power and conquest, this just didn't compute. And this is the heart of the whole story. Abdul Muttalib's answer is just brilliant. He says, I am the owner of my camels. The master of the house knows how best to protect his house. It's such a clear line in the sand. He's basically saying, my camels, that's my responsibility. The Kaaba, that belongs to God, and he will protect what is his. It's a statement of absolute, unshakable faith. So with that, Abdul Muttalib leaves. He takes his people up into the mountains to safety. And Abraha, probably more fired up than ever, gets his army ready for the final push. But his biggest weapon is about to become his biggest problem. So they get the main event, the giant elephant, Mahmud, ready to lead the charge. They point him towards the Kaaba, and he sits down. He just kneels. So they start beating him, hitting him with axes, trying to force him up. Nothing. But here's the crazy part. They turn him around, point him back towards Yemen, and poof, he gets up and starts walking. Turn him back towards Mecca, sits right back down. Again and again, the unstoppable army was completely stopped by its own symbol of power. So you've got this entire army, this massive invasion force, completely paralyzed, basically arguing with an elephant. And while all that chaos is happening on the ground, the real response starts to arrive. And it's not from any human army, it's from the sky. I mean, just look at this mismatch. It's almost comical, right? On one side, you've got Abraha with his giant army, his war elephant, all this brute force. And what's the divine plan? Birds. With little pebbles. It doesn't even seem like a fair fight, but not in the way you'd think. All of a sudden, the sky starts to fill with these birds coming in from the sea. And people who saw them said they'd never seen birds like this before in their lives, flocks and flocks of them.
And what were they carrying? 3 tiny little stones of baked clay. That's it. 1 in the beak, 2 in the claws. We're talking pebbles the size of a pea. You'd think, what damage could that possibly do?
Well, the answer was total devastation. Each tiny pebble that dropped hit with the force of a bullet, just tearing through everything, armor, men, even the elephants. This once mighty army was utterly annihilated, left, as the scripture so vividly puts it, like chewed up straw. The whole thing was over in moments. That grand human scheme, all that planning and power, just gone. And what happened to Abraha himself is maybe the most chilling part of the whole story. Yeah, most of the army was wiped out right then and there. But Abraha, his end was slow and horrifying. He was struck by this disease, and his body literally started to fall apart, piece by piece, as his men tried to carry him home to Yemen. And then you have a couple of the elephant drivers who actually survived, but they were left blind and paralyzed, living in Makkah as a constant living reminder of what had happened that day. So, when you step back, what's the big lesson here? What are we supposed to take away from this? Well, for one, it's a huge, humbling lesson that no matter how clever our plans are, they're powerless against divine will. It's also a powerful story about what true faith looks like, the kind Abdul Muttalib had, where you understand what's in your hands and what you need to trust to a higher power. It tells us that some things are protected not by our strength, but simply by their sacredness. And that really brings us to the final thought. The question the story leaves hanging in the air for all of us. If our own strength and our own clever plans all have a breaking point, then where does real, true security actually come from? It's a powerful thing to think about, and it's the question that the story of the elephant has been asking for centuries.